She's not married, but she's good for a check. That was the toast. That was the punchline. 300 guests erupted into laughter, eyes turning to table 18, the overflow table by the emergency exit where I sat. Brenda held the microphone, grinning at me from the head table, like she had just bestowed a great honor upon me, instead of publicly reducing my entire existence to a bank account. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I stood up, walked past the confused audio technician, and ripped the HDMI cable out of the laptop, running the sentimental slideshow. I plugged in my phone. The childhood photos vanished. In their place, a single, bright red notification projected 10 feet high behind the bride. Transfer canceled. $250,000. The laughter died instantly. Before I tell you exactly what happened when that screen went black and the lights went out, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this story travels. They called me cold. They called me distant. But they never called me broke. My name is Ranana. I'm 29 years old. And in my family, I don't have a personality type. I have a credit score. I'm a chief financial officer for a logistics firm, which means my entire life is built on risk assessment and liability management. I know how to spot a bad investment from a mile away. And my family? They were the worst investment in my portfolio. $250,000. That was the invoice for the Sapphire Cove, a private island resort off the Florida Keys. Caleb, my older brother, wanted a destination wedding that screamed generational wealth, even though his only contribution to the family legacy was a string of failed dropshipping businesses and a mountain of credit card debt. Lacey, the bride, wanted a fairy tale. Brenda, my stepmother, just wanted a stage. And I was the silent partner. The infrastructure. You don't thank the floorboards for holding you up. You just walk on them. I paid for the island rental. I paid for the chartered boats. I paid for the premium open bar that they were currently drinking dry. But I didn't just write a check. I built a failsafe. 3 days ago, at the marina, the sun was beating down on the wooden docks as the guests lined up for the boats. The humidity was already curling Lacey's hair, and Brenda was barking orders at the luggage porters. I stood at the gangway with an iPad and a stack of gold silicone wristbands. Access passes. Everyone needs to sign for their wristband, I said, blocking Brenda's path. Resort policy. Liability waivers for the boat ride and island activities. Brenda rolled her eyes, snatching the stylus from my hand. Always the actuary, aren't you, Ranana? Can't just enjoy the sunshine without turning it into a spreadsheet. It must be exhausting being so boring. She didn't read a single word. She just scribbled her jagged signature across the bottom of the screen, tossed the stylus back at me, and grabbed her wristband. Come on, Caleb, she shouted. Let your sister finish her paperwork. I watched them board the boat, laughing, already popping champagne that I had paid for. I looked down at the iPad screen. Brenda hadn't signed a liability waiver. She had signed a conditional sponsorship agreement. I scrolled down to Clause 4, the non-disparagement clause. It stated clearly that the sponsorship of the event was contingent upon the respectful conduct of the beneficiaries. It explicitly defined public humiliation, slander, or verbal abuse as a breach of contract. And the penalty for breach was immediate repayment of all costs, plus interest, effective the moment the violation occurred. Just standard procedure. I whispered to the empty dock. They thought I was handing them a gift. I was handing them a line of credit. And I knew, with absolute mathematical certainty, that Brenda wouldn't be able to resist maxing it out. She thought I was weak because I was generous. She didn't realize that in my world, the person holding the debt is the one holding the power. I locked the iPad, put it in my bag, and boarded the last boat. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait for them to step into it. The Sapphire Cove was designed to look like paradise. But to me, it looked like a spreadsheet come to life. I walked through the open-air lobby, noting the high thread count linens on the cabanas and the imported limestone under my feet. I knew exactly what they cost, because I had approved the line items myself. I walked straight to the front desk, bypassing the welcome cocktails, and placed my ID on the marble counter. Checking in. Ranana. I booked the presidential penthouse. The receptionist, a young woman with a name tag that read Tiffany, typed something into her terminal. Then she stopped. She typed again. Faster this time. Her smile faltering. She looked up at me, then over my shoulder, then back at the screen. I'm sorry, Miss Ranana, she stammered. But the system shows. You've been moved. Moved? My voice was level, but the air around me seemed to drop 10 degrees. I am the primary account holder. I didn't authorize a move. Tiffany swallowed hard. The mother of the bride. Mrs. Brenda. She came in about an hour ago. She told the manager there was a mistake with the allocation. She said the presidential suite was required for the bridal party's spiritual preparation. She reassigned the keys. And where did she reassign me? Tiffany hesitated, sliding a plain, plastic keycard across the counter. It wasn't the gold embossed card for the main villas. Room 404. It's in the service annex. I took the card. I didn't scream at the girl. It wasn't her fault she'd been steamrolled by a professional manipulator. I turned and walked out of the lobby, past the infinity pool, past the guests sipping my paid-for mojitos, and headed toward the back of the property. The pavement turned from stone to gravel. The landscaping stopped abruptly. Room 404 was a windowless box next to the industrial laundry facility. The air smelled of bleach and diesel fumes from the backup generator that thrummed against the back wall. There was a single twin bed and a flickering fluorescent light. This wasn't a guest room. It was a holding cell for staff who missed the last boat home. I dropped my bag on the thin mattress and walked straight back to the main villa. I didn't knock. I used the master code I had set up weeks ago. Brenda hadn't thought to change it. The door swung open to reveal a scene of absolute indulgence. Brenda was lounging on the velvet sofa, a glass of vintage rosé in hand, while Lacey and 3 bridesmaids raided the minibar. They froze when they saw me. "You're in my room," I said. Brenda didn't even sit up. She swirled her wine, looking at me with a mixture of pity and annoyance. "Oh, Ra'anana. Don't be dramatic. Lacey needs the space for her glam squad. They have equipment. You have... what? A laptop and a suit? I paid $20,000 for this suite, Brenda. And you'll get your money's worth by seeing your brother happy," she countered, her voice dripping with that sickening sweetness she used when she was winning. "Besides, look at you. You're single. What were you going to do with a jacuzzi tub and a king-size bed? It would just be... lonely. We did you a favor. You fit better back there." She wasn't just stealing a room. She was putting me in my place. She was telling me that my comfort was a waste of resources because I wasn't a wife. I looked at Lacey. She was wearing a silk robe that I had bought for her bridal shower. She looked away, pretending to be fascinated by her cuticles. "Enjoy the view," I said. I didn't demand the keys back. I didn't call the manager to cause a scene. I pulled out my phone and snapped a single photo of them in the room, capturing the open champagne bottles and Brenda's smirk. Then I opened my email and forwarded the booking confirmation and the photo to a folder labeled Evidence. Brenda thought she had evicted me. She didn't realize she had just violated the exclusivity clause of the rental agreement. She was squatting. And eviction laws in Florida are very specific about squatters. My luggage had been misplaced by the bellhops. Another administrative error, according to Brenda. So I walked into the rehearsal dinner wearing a beige linen sundress I had been forced to buy at the resort gift shop for $300. I looked like a tourist who had wandered into a black tie gala by mistake. The Sunset Pavilion was a masterpiece of my own financing. Imported orchids, crystal stemware, a live jazz quartet playing softly in the corner. I stood at the edge of the tent, watching my money at work. Then I saw it. It caught the light from the chandeliers, a flash of brilliant, icy fire around Lacey's neck. I stopped breathing for a second. It was a 3-carat solitaire diamond pendant, set in vintage platinum. I didn't buy that for the wedding. I bought that for myself 5 years ago, the day I made CFO. It represented the first time I realized I was worth more than what I could give to others. It lived in the wall safe at the family home I paid the mortgage on. A safe that only I had the combination to. Brenda hadn't just moved me to the servants' quarters. She had broken into my home before we left. I walked straight to the head table. Lacey was laughing, touching the stone at her throat. When she saw me, her hand froze, covering the diamond. "That's mine," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the jazz. Brenda stood up, glass in hand, beaming. She turned my confrontation into a performance. "Everyone, a toast," she announced, her voice booming, "to my beautiful daughter-in-law, Lacey, wearing the family heirloom I gifted her this morning. Something old, something new, something borrowed from the mother-in-law's collection." The room applauded. Brenda looked at me over the rim of her glass, her eyes hard and challenging. "I dare you," she was saying. "I dare you to call your mother a thief in front of these people." I opened my mouth to speak, but a hand clamped down on my arm. It was Caleb. He dragged me a few steps away, his grip tight. "Don't," he hissed. His face was flushed with expensive scotch. "Don't you dare make a scene over a piece of jewelry, Ra'anana. It's her weekend. Just let her wear it. It's stolen property, Caleb." She broke into my safe. "It's just a rock," he snapped. "God, you are so materialistic. You have everything, and you can't stand to see Lacey have one nice thing? Mom said she's just borrowing it. Stop being so selfish and sit down." Selfish. The word echoed in my head. I looked at them. Brenda, smug and victorious. Lacey, entitled and glittering. Caleb, spineless and cruel. They didn't fear me. Why would they? I had spent a decade teaching them that my anger had no consequences. I had taught them that if they pushed hard enough, I would fold. I would write the check. I would forgive. They don't steal from me because they're desperate, I realized. They steal from me because they don't respect me. And why should they? I had been paying for their affection, thinking it was love. But it wasn't love. It was a transaction where I was the only one paying. Mercy is just permission for thieves to keep robbing you. If I wanted my dignity back, I couldn't be their sister or their daughter anymore. I had to become the one thing they actually respected. Their creditor. You're right, Caleb, I said, my voice terrifyingly calm. I won't make a scene tonight. I pulled my arm from his grip. I didn't go back to my table. I stepped into the shadows of the tent, pulled out my phone, and opened my asset management app. I logged the necklace as stolen inventory. They wanted to wear my net worth? Fine. They could pay the market price for it. The screen behind Lacey was still glowing red with the words, "Transfer cancelled." But Brenda didn't crumble. She laughed. It was a sharp, brittle sound that echoed through the stunned tent. She grabbed the microphone from the table, her knuckles white, her smile tight and predatory. "Oh, Nana," she cooed, her voice trembling with faux sympathy. "Honey, you've had too much to drink. Is this about the room? Or are you just having one of your episodes?" She turned to the crowd, spreading her arms wide. "Everyone, please, ignore her. My stepdaughter has always been a little unstable when she's not the center of attention. It's sad, really. Security? Could you please escort her out so we can get back to the celebration? She's clearly unwell." The murmurs started. I saw heads turn. I saw the doubt in their eyes. Maybe she is drunk. Maybe she is jealous. Caleb stood up, looking relieved that Brenda had taken charge. "Yeah, come on, Nana. You're embarrassing yourself. Just go sleep it off." 2 large security guards in black blazers started moving toward me. The crowd was shifting, siding with the bride and the mother, because people always side with the spectacle until the bill comes due. This was the moment they thought they had won. They thought I was throwing a tantrum. They didn't realize I was conducting an audit. I didn't argue. I didn't scream that I was sober. I simply swiped left on my phone screen, which was still mirrored to the giant projector. The red cancellation notice slid away. In its place appeared a high-resolution PDF. The conditional sponsorship agreement. I zoomed in. The pixels were crisp. Every person in the room could see Brenda's jagged, impatient signature at the bottom. "Clause 4, I said. My voice wasn't amplified by a mic anymore, but in the sudden hush, it carried. The non-disparagement clause. Any public act of humiliation, slander, or verbal abuse directed at the sponsor by the beneficiaries shall constitute a material breach of contract. Brenda faltered. The guards stopped walking. I faced Brenda head-on. "You just called me good for a check in front of 300 people. You breached the agreement." Her mask dropped. "It's a piece of paper. It means nothing. It's a promissory note," I said, showing the timer on my screen. "The $250,000 wasn't a gift. It converts to a loan if you default. And you just did." Caleb scoffed. "You're bluffing. I already revoked authorization." The lights died. Music stopped. AC shut down. The tent fell into darkness, except for the contract glowing behind the bride. Gasps filled the air. "The open bar is now cash. Dinner service stops. And the boats? Cancelled." Security paused because I signed their checks. I pointed at Lacey. "That necklace is stolen. Take it off or I press charges." With shaking hands, she unclasped it while the crowd watched. "Asset recovered," I said, and walked out. Brenda chased me, screaming. Security tried to block my exit until I showed my contract. "Primary account holder, me, you're my guests. Access revoked." The guards stepped aside. Brenda looked punched. "But the wedding is over." I invoked an innkeeper's lien. The resort seized their luggage, clothes, electronics, wedding gifts until the debt was paid. "How do we get home?" Lacey sobbed. "There's a public ferry at 6. Enjoy the beach." I boarded my private charter and left them standing on the dock dressed like royalty, powerless like debtors. In the aftermath, the bills, damages, and lawsuits destroyed them. They sold the family home. Caleb's credit tanked. Lacey left him. The necklace suit evaporated. I used the money to open the Ledger Retreat, a refuge for women escaping financial manipulation. Months later, my father texted begging for help. I deleted the message without a reply. They treated me like a bank. So, I collected the debt and closed the account.